All right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to make a simple kind of cardboard style box that we're going to apply graphics onto in Rhino, using Rhino and Photoshop. So we're also going to create a layout that can be printed and cut so that you can create the actual physical box too. So let's go ahead and do that. So I got my lightsaber piece here, and this is what I'm going to use. I'm going to go ahead and go to a top view, and we're going to draw a box around it. I'm going to turn the grid snap on so that I'm sure that I will lock onto the grid as I'm drawing this. So I'm going to type box, enter, and then I'm going to use a grid spot right there, and then about right there. I'm going to hover over and go all the way to about there. Then I'm going to switch to a right view, and I'm going to go up to about there. Then I'm going to move the lightsaber up by one grid notch. Boom. Actually, I'm going to turn grid snap back off here and move it to about right there. Okay. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to actually fillet the edge of this. So I'm going to rotate, make a rounded off edge on here. So I'm going to type fillet edge, enter, and I'm going to do a radius of 1.5 inches. So I got to put quote because I'm in millimeters as my default system here. So then I'm going to click here and hit enter, enter. So that's going to create a rounded edge to that box that I can then make a window and put it on there. So in order to make the window, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a front view. I'm actually going to go to my layers, and I'm going to turn off on my layers all of my lightsaber stuff. Okay. Then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to draw a rectangle from this corner here to this corner there. And then I'm going to shift and scale it in. And then I'm going to scale it in this direction too. Just like that. Switch back to perspective. And I'm going to then zoom it out like that. I'm going to check to see, okay, so there's, might actually go ahead and pull this side up slightly. Just eyeballing it. Since it does have that radius, it does actually, you do need to make sure that your amount of slack makes sense here. And then I'm going to go ahead and split this, enter, with this, enter. Then I'm going to delete the box. Then I'm going to click on this. This is going to be the window, so I'm going to save that. Creating a new layer, and we'll call it window. All right, and then I'm going to right click on it and change object layer. So I already created the layer for each one of these and colored them because I already know what these steps are. But if you're concerned at all about that, if you just hit plus layer, you're going to get a blank layer, and you just title it window and repeat the steps. You can change the color by clicking right here. Okay. So next thing I want to do is I'm going to hide the window. So turn that layer off. And I'm going to put this on the box layer. So I'm going to right click on it and go change object layer. And, again, create the layer yourself. And now I've got it color coded. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do offset surface, enter. And I'm going to select the whole thing. And then I'm going to hit enter, and I want it to be 2 millimeters. So distance equals 2, enter, and then I'm going to hit enter again. And so that just gave me thickness. You can see my thickness here. Great. You need to have thickness because, well, you'll see later on when I import the material that we make, you'll see the material on both sides. If the object does not have thickness, then anything you apply material-wise to one side will show up on both sides. So also it looks better in the rendering to have a little thickness. Next step, I'm going to go ahead and bring back my window here. And then I want to move it. So I'm going to go move, enter, select the end here, and move it to the midpoint on this surface. That doesn't work. So I'm going to go ahead and hit delete. And undo it. Yeah, we'll just leave it like that. It's fine. One more undo just to bring it back there. Okay. All right, next, hide the window again. Sorry about that little detour. Didn't line up the way I wanted it to. And I'm not going to be that much of a perfectionist. Next thing I want to do is I want to extract surfaces. I'm going to extract the inside here because I'm going to put this on a different layer. Basically, anything I want to apply different materials to, I'm going to put on different layers. Enter, and then I'm going to have to join them together. So type join, enter, while it's selected. Now it's all one piece. And I'm going to call this box rim. So I'm going to change object layer and put that on the box rim layer, which I've already got there. And because I already had it, it turned off that layer. Okay. Next, I'm going to delete this little rectangle. I don't need that. And I want to pull out all the interior surfaces. So I'm going to extract surface here. I'm going to extract this one, this one. I got a little curve bit here, that sidewall there, this one, bottom, side here. You want to make sure we get them all. Looks to me like it's all selected. You, of course, are seeing that it's yellow. And then I hit enter. Join, enter, and then box inside, change object layer. And we can see based off of the color coding, did I get everything? Yes, it looks like it's all good. All right, so now I can turn off the box inside. And now this is the box outside. The box outside is going to be great because that's going to give us the ability to unroll the surfaces to turn it into a template. And also, this is what we're going to UV map for our design. So I'll show you what unroll surfaces does here first. So I'm going to go ahead and go unroll surface, enter. Explode, no. And then keep properties, yes. Labels, no. Enter. So what that has done is that has actually created a like a little template that I can use for folding it back together. Okay. But where things are connected are a little bit funky to me. So you can control how the surface unrolls by kind of separating things out. So that's what I'm going to do next. So I'm going to delete this and show you kind of like ways you can tweak the unrolled surface. So one way is to actually extract the surfaces on the end, because if I unroll just the center part, I don't have to worry about those funky connections on the sides here. It'll unroll just around it and leave these sides off. So I'm going to extract surface, enter, this side, and this side, enter. So they're no longer part of the whole. So I can select them by themselves. And then I'm going to unroll the surfaces again. And that's going to give me a nice flat unrolled surface like that. Now, one thing that I don't like about this is the front face. Just knowing how I want my design to look, I actually want my design to go on this face, and the top all the way around, looped around. And right now I've got the window here and then it loops around that way. So I can rearrange this. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now by exploding. Boom. And then I have this piece now is separate, and I can just go move, enter, click on this endpoint here and move that to the spot here. Okay. So this is just part of my layout. And then I've got these endpoints here, which I'm going to hit Alt or whatever the Mac equivalent is for y'all to copy it and move it over. And then I'm going to hit this side and go Alt and move this over there, because we still do need those wings. We just wanted to control where they're unrolled to. And then I'm going to lay it flat there and lay it flat there. And then I'm going to move it, enter, from this point to right Oh, I guess I grabbed it the wrong spot. Move this enter from there. I want it right there. And then I want this one moved from here to right there. And of course we want to make sure they're lined up right, which mine are. Very nice. Okay. Then I'm going to join this thing back together. Okay. And then now we've got these all separate. I'm going to go ahead and join them together. All right. So this is going to be the layout for our template here, but I got to go to a top view first, and then I'm going to select it, and I'm going to type make 2D. So this is just going to give me my vectors that I can use in a laser cutter or in like a silhouette or a Cricut vinyl cutter type of thing to cut out the shape after I print the graphics on it. So I'm going to hit OK. And there it is. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw this on the default layer so you can see. Oops. Change object layer. And now we can look at it here. And when we go back to perspective, you can see these are just the lines. And that's what we need in order to get this to cut properly. So that we're going to basically set aside. I'm going to delete this. I'll turn off the layer. And we'll come back to that when we export that layer later on. Actually, you know what? Let's do that right now. I'll go ahead and export it just so you can see. So this layer right here, I can go to a file, print. All right, and then from the print settings, we're going to use Rhino PDF. We want to make sure vector output is set here. I'm going to use ArchC, which is going to be 18 by 24, which is actually too big for most silhouettes or laser cutters. Hopefully yours can fit on tabloid. Mine won't be able to, so I'm just going to use ArchC. And then I'm going to go to a window here and set my window. Oops. Let's go to a top view. Let's go to window first. Let's go ahead and go. Actually, let's go top view here. That'll just work. And then window set. And I'll move it in alignment with my object. Hit enter. And that is going to give me window print color. Let's go display color. That way it's black. Okay. Print. And I'm going to save that to my Lightsaber folder right there. Okay. Now I have my print layout. And that's what you can use to lay out your graphics on as well. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay. So now I'm just going to go ahead and turn off that layer, come back over to my box, go to perspective. Next step, let's talk about UV mapping. So what we're going to do next is we're going to actually unwrap this thing using our UV map settings under properties. So with it selected, we're going to go to the properties menu here, and then right here where it says texture mapping, click on that, and that's going to give you our commands for texture mapping. UV mapping is basically we're going to lay it flat, put the graphics on it, and then wrap it back up like kind of like like making a 3D object, two-dimensional for the purposes of material adding. And this is what like Substance Painter uses and exports when but you'll do that more in the program designing onto the 3D object, and then it unwraps it afterwards. So that's what Substance Painter does. But for us, we're gonna kind of work with Photoshop to actually map on the material. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna unwrap the present. So click right here. And then up here where it says mapping channel, we have mapping channel 1. We'll hit enter. That's fine. And then we're going to make our own seams. So if we remember from our previous map where we want the cuts to be, I will put them in the same spot. So this is where what parts are going to be separated. So I'm going to click here, here, there, there, there. This part is all separated and it's connected to the top. Okay. Now, this is also why we only have the one exterior part of our thickness, because if you're UV mapping an object that already has thickness, every side of that surface, inside and out, will be UV mapped. But because this is just the exterior surfaces, it makes it really nice and clean. I can kind of show you if you'd like, but this is, you know, you'll see. So these are where the seams are going to go, because this is all one piece. So there's no cut there. There's no cut there. There's no cut there. It's just kind of wrapped that way. And so when I hit enter, I can now go to the UV editor here and we can look at it. And you can see it looks just like our map that we made earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of move this towards the center here. Okay. Great. So this is our map. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to save it. So I will click right here, save to bitmap. Now, when you go to save to bitmap, one thing that you need to keep in mind is you have to have permission to save to the location you're saving. And sometimes with especially Mac computers and stuff, they are trying to block you from saving viruses and stuff. And so it might not want to save to your computer's hard drive. Mine, for example, will not save to my Cal Poly Pomona OneDrive folder. So I've got to actually save it to my desktop, because the desktop doesn't sync with the cloud, or a lot of times you can save it to a thumb drive or someplace else. Just if it doesn't save, just know that it has something to do with the permissions to save to that device. So I'm going to hit desktop here and I'm going to call it Box UV and save it and override the one that I've already got. Okay, so once it's saved, we are now ready to bring this into Photoshop. All right, so in Photoshop here, we have our UV layout. And then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bump up the size of the image here. So adjust the image size. And I've already done this, but you're going to need to do it. So typically I like to bump it up to 2048 by 2048 with 150 resolution. By default, it comes in at 1024 by 1024, which is fine for objects like something sitting on a counter and you're rendering out a whole room. But when we're focusing on the object, we need to make sure that it is large enough resolution to be able to not pixelate when we bring our images in. So the other thing is we are using powers of 2 for what we call MIP maps, which are a type of compression algorithm that is used in certain softwares like gaming software and stuff like that. But by just a standard, we always use a square aspect ratio for materials, and 24 by 20, and you want it to be powers of 2. What I mean by that is if you divide 2048 by 2, it's 1024. You divide that by 2, it's 512. If you divide that by 4 or by 2, that so it keeps going down all the way to 2, and that is just a way that the software is going to be able to compress things later on. So don't worry about that for now, but just make sure that you're kind of learning that as a rule of thumb. So 2048 by 2048. 150 resolution on our image here, and then I'm going to layer on top, and you can see I've already done it, but I'm not going to waste your time showing you how Photoshop works. You should already know how to do the Photoshopping. So you can see I've got this technical drawing, which is just from my technical drawing tutorial, and I've just taken one view of it. And then I made the line weights red, removed out the background, and kind of created a little bit of a gradient in certain areas here. So did a little photoshopping to the technical drawing, and then I've got text that I've also removed the background from, had some translucency as well. And this was actually created using Adobe Substance, and I extruded out the lettering from Rhino to create this typeface. And then I've got a Substance Painter rendering that I did of the lightsaber, and you can see how the texture and everything looks beautiful in Substance Painter, and that is an awesome program for texturing your objects. I have tutorials on how I did this as well on my page. So let's go back to the UV map, and this is the layout that I've done. So I've created a background color, and then I've got my UV map, and then I've got my technical drawing, and I've got a blurred out kind of opaque version of the rendering that I'm going to use. I don't want it to be distracting from what's in the window there, so I've created that. And then the typeface goes on the top. And then if I hide this, because I don't need the layer anymore, I'm just using this the UV map as a point of reference. Like if I wanted to do something on the sides, I would do it over here, you know? So this is the bottom, this is the back, this is the top, this is the front. So that's how I've got it laid out on here. And fun fact, I can also print this out and then cut it out to make a physical box. So yeah, turn that off. And this is what it looks like. So then I go ahead and go File, Export as PNG, title it, and I've got a couple of iterations because I had to do some trial and error stuff here. So I'll just title it. I'll title this one 5. Okay. So this is the one that's probably that is going to be the keeper because I did make some mistakes before, but yeah, so we've got it all lined up. And if you do make a mistake, that's why you want to keep Photoshop open, keep all the layers separate, and then you can move things around. Like say this was on originally when I was doing this layer was upside down on the box, so then I just had to come back in and transform it and flip it over. So yeah, that's why we keep it open. You can make modifications, re-export it, and then it's really easy to put it onto the object. All you got to do is drag and drop it. So I'm just going to grab that PNG, which is titled 5. I'm going to drag it from, I've got my secondary monitor open. So I just drag the physical file. I don't have any materials on this box. That's another crucial thing. And then drag it onto the object here. And then you can see that Lightsaber's written on the top. I've got the technical drawing on the back, and then I've got that nice blurred out gradient kind of hint of what the object is there. Other things, I've turned back on the layers here on the box rim and the box inside. I mentioned earlier that we needed to have thickness to things, and that's because, yes, you can see the materials through it if you don't have thickness to your object. So box inside and box rim at the beginning of the video, that's why we did that. I've now applied a material to that. The window is glass. I've added a glass material to the window, and that's just right here. Glass applied to the window. Add the material, and you can see glass. And I can even color the glass too. So like right now the glass is white. Like say I wanted to give it a little bit like of a pink tint. I know it's red glass. You're not going to see it here. You'll only see it when it's ray traced, right? So if I switch my view to ray traced, you'll see it'll turn kind of like a reddish kind of tone. Well, there's nothing showing up inside there, so let me just turn back on my lightsaber layers. And yeah, you can see the red glass might be too intense. So I'll go back to my materials real quick. I'm going to change that out because I don't think it's too distracting, right? So I'll make this material color just white. It's fine. And then you got to give it a minute to update. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, now it looks more realistic. And then my rim, I don't want this texture on there. I'm just going to put plastic. Okay, cool. So I've also duplicated the lightsaber and kind of put it at a fun angle. I want to create a composition. So you're just thinking about framing anything you've learned from photography or anything like that. How are you going to place the objects so that they look nice and they render out well? Looks good. Let's go to some render settings real quick. So I'm going to go to render properties here. And I'm going to add a 360-degree studio so that I'm going to get some background in here. And then I'm also going to turn on a ground plane, and I'm going to use a material. And then I'm going to select from all my materials. I'm just going to use plastic. I think plastic is cool. It's going to give it a little bit of a reflective kind of base to it, little cast shadows. You'll see some of the glares from the lights and stuff. And then I'll hit OK. And so there, we're in plastic. Very cool. So back up to render settings since I've already done, I hit OK there. We want to also make sure our resolution is good enough. So I like to use a custom resolution of, a little bit bigger, 3200 by 2400, 4 by 3 there. That aspect ratio is not going to be the same aspect ratio as an 11 by 17 sheet of paper. So I like to just leave a little bit of a border so I can crop it in to fit the print size that we're going to use, which we're going to use an 11 by 17 print size for the poster image here. So I'll hit OK, and I can see I've got enough space around it to where I can most likely be able to crop it in. So, other settings. I'm sorry, I forgot to say. So there's different quality options here. Draft quality is actually pretty good. The nuances between good quality and draft quality really matter when you add particle effects and things afterwards. So if your computer's a little bit slower, draft quality, use it. You see how long it takes. If it only takes a couple of seconds to do, then you can bump it up to like good quality. Final quality is unnecessary for most of y'all. But yeah, so this is basically how many times it's calculating the way the light falls on the object to give it the most accurate representation possible. Like I said, good quality or draft quality will probably work for most of you. So I'm going to use good quality just for our purposes here. Hit OK. And just type in render. And you can see the samples are cranking right here. Mine are going real quick. So that was real time, rendered to 500. You can also add After Effects in certain ways. I don't mean After Effects like the program. I mean, you can add effects to make that glow a little bit brighter, all those kinds of things. So post effects, if I go to add glow, for example, and I can do the intensity of the glow. And you'll see it around anything that illuminates. And most of these effects are actually going to be pretty labor intensive on your computer and stuff. So if you don't want to deal with it, it's fine. And then I'm going to choose a color sensitivity. So you can see how the glow is actually hitting the silver there. If I add another one, I can do the color on here, and I can use like a red color, which will pick up the glow on this. And it just adds these little highlight effects. There we go. So now the lightsaber's glowing, and even the word lightsaber's kind of glowing, which I guess isn't necessarily exactly what we want. But I think it looks all right. So we can add other effects. We can do depth of field, which will blur the background, all kinds of stuff. But I'm not going to mess around too much with that. I'm going to go ahead and save this as our render. Tile it render final, hit OK, replace it, because I already did it once. And then under our file here, let me go ahead and pull this over here. We've got render final. So this is going to be what we're going to use. I will then open this up in Photoshop and make some more modifications. I will add typography to it. I'll kind of give it a little spiel as to, you know, what it is. Like, I kind of had a concept that this would maybe be, you know, it could be a flashlight, you know, or it could be a lightsaber, and I could say it's for killing the Jedi or whatever, you know. So this is the point where you'll do that. And then we'll also want to go, of course, to the image size. And then because I've got my width, I'm going to make it I'm going to switch it over to inches, and then I'm going to change it to 17, and it's going to be 12.75. Okay. And then I'm going to go to my canvas here. Image, canvas size. And then my canvas size, I'm going to actually anchor it to the bottom there. Switch over to inches. And then 11. Hopefully it doesn't crop off. Proceed. Any of the top of my package. No, it doesn't. Okay. So now I have the aspect ratio that I want. I've got room for my type and text, and I'm almost there. Other things to consider is, you know, if your design works better in portrait orientation than than landscape orientation, please use the proper orientation based off of how your render looks best to be able to make it look right. You know, you got to think about layout. You got to think about the way this thing's going to look at the end. But yeah, that's basically our final version with a little box design. I could actually print that out and build my own box. So hopefully you found this useful. Thank you very much.